Welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Join me today guys for a yet another review on an Escapement Time. Now I am a huge fan of these watches. I have reviewed the Escapement Time King Seiko homage, which I'm wearing on my wrist to the left. Amazing watch, instantly fell in love with it, and when I put it on the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time bracelet, this watch jumped out, and you know what, it is a very solid watch to wear. For the price, it is probably the best value for money watch on AliExpress. Just stunning looks, so it's a no-brainer to check out what else Escapement Time have to offer. Now on today's video, the watch I have for you guys is the Escapement Time Vintage. That is what it is called on the store. Now I bought this watch back in the previous sale, and I've had it since then. I've not had a chance to review it, but I have worn it. I have taken out the box. I have had a few days with it, and truth be told, it took a couple of days for this watch to grow on me. I'm not a fan of classical vintage looking watches. I am a massive diver fan. Now of course that translates across on this channel with all the videos. I do have a couple of dress watches, stuff like this, and a couple of sporty watches, but this is definitely worth a look at, just to cater to all the other subscribers out there that are missing out on these kind of watches. So here is Escapement Time's offering. Now if you are pretty clued up about this era of watches, you'll instantly know what this watch is homaging. If not, this watch bears a striking resemblance to two watches that I could pick out. One was the 1959 Omega Seamaster. It looks quite similar to this, but also at the same time bears a striking resemblance to the Longines 1954 Conquest watch. And that is in fact what it is an inspiration from. Speaking to the owner of the store, and that is exactly where he got his inspiration from. Now I've said it before about Escapement Time, I really like what they're doing, and they do stand out on AliExpress as a different kind of homage brand. With this King Seiko homage, and of course with this Longines inspired, very vintage 1950s style of watch. And that is something different that they are bringing to the table, and I think it is required. It's definitely a niche that we do need more of in the market, just going after these really old school vintage classy watches. Now while it is a vintage inspiration, the specifications are no way vintage. They're pretty up to date, quite modern. So let's go ahead, look at specifications and move on to dimensions just after. So as you can see, the watch does have a 316L stainless steel case. You do have a see-through case back, and you do have a domed sapphire crystal. Now that is a very expensive crystal. As you know, normally you do get them flat and you do get them domed, but this is a slightly more vintage style, more of a box style crystal, as you got the raised edges. So an expensive piece of sapphire that they use on this watch. Now it is a very plain watch. There isn't a whole array of features, but I think the main thing about this watch, it does feature the Miyota 9015 24 joule hand winding and hacking higher beat movement. Beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. So I think that is the best aspect of the watch, along with the aesthetics and the visuals, of course. Just to have a higher beat movement in there adds that luxurious touch to this already classically inspired wristwatch. Now along with the specifications, the dimensions are also within that vintage line, so let's go ahead, check those out. You have a 38mm case diameter and an incredible 11.5 on the thickness of the watch, and a very wrist-friendly 46.5 on the lug to lug. The lug width is 20mm, and the overall weight is just under 60 grams. So an incredible lightweight, small dimension watch. Now I do like the attention to detail that has been paid to this watch. Now let's have a closer look at this stunning silver Sunray dial. Now the dial is fitted with applied gilt hour markers, all dual batons, and you can see some really incredible detailing present on these hour markers. I'll put some close-up shots, and you can see you've got fully polished hour markers, chamfered on every side, so just gives that depth and that dimension to the hour markers, makes them stick out, that really nice 3D effect. You've also got the Escapement Time logo just under the 12. Above the 6, just plain and simple automatic in that stylized text, and just below the 6 o'clock marker, China. Now, I like how they have put China. A lot of the homage watches that we see, incorrectly state Japan. Some of the really naughty ones state Swiss. But, Escapement Time have no shame in the fact that this is a Chinese watch. And, I do like the fact that they have put that on the dial and they're not trying to hide it in any way, shape or form. Now, you also have a inner printed track. And if you take a closer look at some of these little buttons just in front of some of the hour markers, these are indeed illuminated. So you can just see one above the 12, one at 3 o'clock, and one at the 9 o'clock. And the rest are on the inside. Now, they do have two options. They have a dateless version and they also have a date version with the date window at the 3 o'clock. I decided to go for the dateless version. I feel with these classy, vintage, dressy watches, I do like to see as much of the dial as possible. And, the date isn't important. So I wanted to have this watch just to really appreciate that symmetry of the dial and just, have a complete dial without any cutouts. Now, the handset used, again, really nice, sleek hands. They use these traditional Dauphine style hands, and you've got the hour hand and the minute hand, very nicely done. Although in some of the close-ups you do see just a bit of grime on the hands, possibly from handling and fitting the hands, which is a sign of poor QC. I think on a watch like this you definitely don't want to see any grubby finger marks, on these highly polished surfaces. The second hand is a bit more like a stick second hand, and I would have personally liked to see a bit more length on the second hand. However, because of the minute track where it is, it does overreach those markers. Moving on to the case, you can see the case is quite sleek, very slim, 11.5 millimeters, and it is fully polished. Very nice polishing. There's no blemishes in there. There's no marks. It has been done to a really high quality. Case back, you'll see the exhibition case back. You'll see the Miyota 9015 movement. It isn't the prettiest movement, but it is. You can see the workings. You can see the weight spinning, and on the case back, you'll also see just some detailing. The water resistance of this watch is 50 meters. Sapphire crystal. You've got some numbers on here, made in China, stainless steel, and the company name. Now, you do have some striping present on the back of the movement, so just a touch decoration. And the crown, a highly polished crown, great knurling, highly polished crown, and it has been made quite well. Now, the crown function, I think the crown is the right size. I think a few issues you do have is when the crowns are too small, it's quite difficult to handle. So very nice crown. Let's take it out. A nice crown function. Now, it does have a ghost position for a date. However, there is no date disc, so you can't feel or hear anything moving. Now, let's move on to the movement. The Miyota movement, yes, it is the preferred choice now for a lot of micro brands as well. The thing with the movement is the rotor is quite noisy. Now, I think with the dive watch case, it does sort of dampen a lot of that sound, and you can only hear it occasionally or when you are in a really quiet place. But when you've got such a slim case, it doesn't do any wonders for dampening that rotor sound. So just listen to this. So that's quite loud. You will hear that on your wrist from time to time. And right now, when I put this on the time grapher, see what this Miyota movement is functioning at. Now, the watch is functioning quite well. You do have a -2 to -3 seconds a day accuracy. You have a amplitude of 276 and a beat error of 0.3, which is still well within parameters. And you can see here the higher beat rate. So I think it is a decent movement, and my experience with these Miyota movements, they do run in or around the 4 to 6 seconds a day once they've been fully worn in, which is, still really good, and it does maintain that quite well across the different positions. So let's talk about build quality, in-hand feel, fit and finish on the watch. And you know what? Fit and finish, perfect. The sapphire crystal fits really nice. It really does suit the watch. And the polishing, again, as mentioned, absolutely flawless. There are no sharp edges. The case has been made really well. Everything just looks exactly right. Now, how do you gauge build quality on a watch like this? It is quite difficult, and it's probably part of the reason why I enjoy dive watches or enjoy reviewing dive watches so much. They have a lot more features. You have a bezel, you've got bracelets, and you've got just a lot more going on, which then allows you to gauge how well built that watch is or how hard that brand is trying. Now, the truth of the matter is with this watch, it is very, very simple. You have a plain silver sunburst style dial, not difficult to get at all, and the dial, there's no blemishes on it to the naked eye. Everything looks perfectly fine on that. You know, even with these applied hour markers, again, inexpensive, very easy to do. The case itself, you know, very simple, very common case, you know, when it comes to these kind of watches. And the crown, there's nothing special, there's nothing gone on there which allows me to fully gauge how well built this watch is. From what I can see, everything is just spot on, everything is fine. The crown is well made, you know, there's no rough edges again, and you know, you don't have a screw down crown, so there's nothing to gauge there. Case back, pretty standard, and that is all of it, to be honest. You know, it's everything that is here, very simple, very easy to do, but yeah, it is done really well. Now let's look at the strap. Now they do send out this quite stiff crocodile style leather strap, but I will be replacing it with a strap of my own. Let's go ahead and check that out. So the strap that I've decided to go with is one of my nicest leather straps that I own. So this is this really vintage waxy style of leather. As you can see, it has some really nice wear on it, and the thing with these straps, they are absolutely full of character. You can see it starts to fade, and it does have some cream contrast stitching, so I think that's the right strap for it. Again, just adds to that vintage appeal. So let's put it on wrist. So here we are, the Escapement Time vintage on this 6.5 inch wrist. You have a 38mm case, a 46.5 lug to lug. And how does it look? How does it fit? You know, it fits fine. The leather strap, really nice improvement on the watch. Looks really good. 38mm on a 6.5 inch wrist. It looks just right. The only thing I would say that when it is on the wrist, the lugs are kind of a bit straight, so you can see it does kind of sit proud, and I do like these watches. I think if you had just shorter lugs, if not for them to be just curved or sloped just a bit more, just to give you more of a snug feel. But as it is, it isn't too bad at all. You know, very lightweight, 60 grams, so you're hardly going to feel that. And again, it's going to be a really nice watch to keep looking at, and always remind you of those good old days where you had these really nice, luxurious vintage watches. Now, added with a sapphire crystal, a higher beat movement, modern movement, I think it is a good all-round watch. And you know what makes it better is the price. The price of this watch is £135, which is just under $190. And I think that is a very reasonable price, very good price. You do get plenty of watch. Put it this way, if this is the kind of watch you're looking for, you will be hard-pressed to find a watch on AliExpress with these specifications and with this level of quality. Now, a couple of interesting things while we talk about the AliExpress store, because I will be adding the link to the store within the description. Now, Escapement Time, since I received this watch, have now added another color option, which is a black dial, and you do have you've got some really nice dark gold detailing present in place of the text. You also have a color matched date wheel for the date version. Now, there is an interesting change. They've gone away from the Miyota movement and they've gone to the PT5000 movement. Possibly a cost saving exercise. I don't know exactly, but I'd assume the PT5000 is just a bit cheaper. Yeah, so I would like to see Escapement Time continuing to come out with these kind of watches. This is what I am interested in. This is what I like to see. Just these really classical watches that have kind of disappeared. They're off the radar, and you know, they were really, you know, exceptional looking. I have made some recommendations to them. I don't know if they'll follow through with them, but it would be nice to see some of these vintage watches come out there a lot more. So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next review.